Welcome back. In an exclusive interview with CNN's Christian Amanpour, the Belgian Prime Minister Charles Michel has slammed Turkey for what he says was a lack of warning about one of the Brussels attackers. Turkey deported Ibrahim el-Bakraoui to the Netherlands in July. He later travelled to Belgium and eventually blew himself up at the Brussels airport. Last week, the Turkish president said his country had warned Brussels about el-Bakraoui, but this is what the Belgian Prime Minister had to say.
It is very surprising from a country such as Turkey and its president to see that if that person was dangerous, to leave that person board a plane going to the Netherlands without Turkish officers and without early information given on the fact that that person was about to arrive there and at that time. First point. Second point that I want to indicate, in Belgium, obviously, there will also be a parliamentary investigation commission, and the parliament will be able to check how communication was managed with Belgium and various countries, including Turkey, which really shows that the main priority for our generation in all democratic societies is to make sure that we improve communication, intelligence sharing. I was one of the first European leaders a few months ago already, before terrorist attack in Belgium, to ask for the setting up of a European CIA or FBI, to have a European platform that would be better structured, better organized in order to continuously share information. In Europe, there is freedom of movement within the Schengen area. Borders are open, which means two things, in my opinion. We need strict and tight control on external European borders. This is a challenge for European leaders today. This is an urgent thing we need to do, and we need to improve data, information, intelligence sharing regarding people at risk.
Now, those open borders in Europe, the Belgian Prime Minister mentioned, have also played a role in Europe's struggle to tackle the migrant crisis. EU leaders pinned their hopes on a deal they reached with Turkey last month. Under its terms, anyone who has crossed into Greece illegally since March 20th is to be sent back to Turkey. Now, the deal came into force on Monday, but its impact has been slow. CNN's Phil Black has been following this story and joins me now live from Istanbul. Phil, we saw a trickle of asylum seekers, just 3 boats returned to Turkey on day 1, nothing on day 2. How is it looking now?
Yeah, Lynda, 3 boats on day 1, which was Monday, 202 migrants aboard, but nothing on Tuesday, Wednesday. There won't be any tomorrow. We're not expecting more ferries to arrive carrying deported migrants until Friday. And again, it will probably be a few hundred. The reason for this is that on the Greek side, they're simply not ready. The process is not yet ramped up enough to deal with the thousands of people that are there, assessing each individual asylum application. In some cases, there will be appeals. This all takes time, personnel, resources, all of those sorts of logistics that just simply aren't in place just yet. So it's going to take time to ramp this policy up to see how it is really going to be implemented practically, if it can be implemented practically. Now, some Turkish officials are already claiming the policy is a success because it is deterring people from making the journey, which is the key goal here, really, in the sense that fewer people are now crossing from Greece, from Turkey to Greece, or fewer people have crossed from Turkey to Greece since the deal was announced. But it's probably too early to claim outright success just yet, because while the numbers are down, people are still going, and in greater numbers than those that are being deported from Greece. And of the migrants that we've spoken to, they're not saying they've given up on the idea. They're saying they're just taking a pause. They're being cautious. They want to see how this system is implemented, what it will mean for them, and even in the event that they believe it is very likely they will then be deported from Greece should they travel, they're not ruling out the attempt because they feel they have no other choice but to do so. Lynda.
And Phil, the EU Commission has just published a policy paper that basically states the current migrant crisis has exposed significant structural weaknesses in the current regulations. They have proposed to overhaul it. What are they suggesting?
The key changes really apply to what's known as the Dublin rules, which basically say within the European Union that the country where migrants first arrive is the country that is ultimately responsible for handling their asylum application and taking care of them as well. What they're talking about is that in this case, in this context of the crisis, is obviously Greece and Italy. These are the countries that to a significant degree have been overwhelmed. taken on the greater share of the burden, the responsibility. So the EU Commission says that this is not fair, it is not sustainable. It is suggesting possible changes to those rules. One would simply see a mechanism applied whereby in times of crisis and emergency, some of the migrant numbers could be shared out among other countries. The other slightly more radical idea is to do away with the Dublin rule altogether and replace it with a system of distribution across all EU member states based on numbers which would apply to their economic ability to handle migrants and so forth. But the people behind this paper admit that even these sorts of changes are moderate, but potentially realistic. They say in the longer term, however, the European Union may need to consider a fully centralised system for dealing with asylum cases, whereby member states would actually give up many of their powers in this regard, hand it over to an EU organisation which would then rule on asylum applications and also decide which countries the successful applicants should go to. That isn't part of this policy paper because the people behind it admit countries simply wouldn't go for it politically right now. That idea simply would not fly, Lynda.
Okay, Phil Black staying across the door for us live from Istanbul. Thank you very much. Well, coming up later, Bangladesh faces criticism over toxic water. One rights group says it was warned about 2 decades ago. A look at who's being affected just ahead. Also, Trump finally explains how he plans to get Mexico to pay for a border wall. We'll ask Mexican immigrants here in Atlanta what they think about the candidate's latest twist on the controversial proposal.